You have probably heard that heart disease is a modern problem. Too much sitting, too much processed food, too much sugar and stress and sedentary living. Before all of that, the story goes, our arteries were clean. They were not. In 2013, a team of cardiologists and radiologists ran one of the most unusual studies in medical history. They scanned the mummified remains of 137 people, not from one civilization, from 4: ancient Egyptians, ancient Peruvians, the ancestral Puebloans of the American Southwest, the Unangan people of coastal Alaska, 4 cultures, 4 diets, thousands of miles apart, separated by up to 4,000 years. They called it the Horus study. And in almost 40% of the mummies, there was atherosclerosis. This is what happens when fatty plaques build up inside the walls of your arteries. The vessel narrows, blood flow slows. The heart works harder to push blood through a pipe that is quietly closing. This is what causes heart attacks. It is the leading cause of death in the developed world. And it was happening inside the arteries of Peruvian farmers who died 2,000 years ago. The researchers, led by Randall Thompson and Gregory Thomas, were not just surprised. They were forced to rethink the standard explanation. The assumption had been that atherosclerosis was primarily caused by modern risk factors, processed foods, cigarettes, a sedentary lifestyle, the diseases of abundance. But the ancestral Puebloans had none of that. Neither did the Unangan of Alaska, who lived almost entirely on fish and marine mammals. Their diets were lean and active. They had no refined carbohydrates, no tobacco, no desk jobs, and still the plaques were there. So what was causing it? One theory is inflammation. Ancient life was not peaceful. Parasitic infections were common and often lifelong. Injuries went septic. Smoke from open cooking fires was breathed every day for decades. All of these trigger the immune system's inflammatory response, and inflammation is one of the main drivers of arterial disease. When your immune system perceives the walls of a blood vessel as damaged, it responds by depositing material to patch the damage. Over time, that patching becomes plaque. The process that kills people in hospitals today was also killing people beside cooking fires in the Amazon. A second theory is genetics. If a person survived long enough to reproduce before their arteries failed them, evolution had little reason to select against the genes that allow arterial plaque to form. Heart disease tends to kill in the 50s and 60s. For most of human history, very few people lived that long. If the condition was not cutting short reproductive lives, it was not being weeded out of the gene pool. We carried the vulnerability forward. There is a third finding in the Horus study that nobody quite expected. Some of the individuals with the most significant atherosclerosis appeared to be relatively young when they died, not elderly, not worn out by decades of accumulated plaque, which raises a question that remains open. Were they dying because of their heart disease? Or were they dying of something else, with their arteries already silently compromised? The study cannot answer that. What it can say is that atherosclerosis was not caused by modernity. It predates industry. It predates agriculture. The fossil evidence for arterial plaque exists in ancient remains that far predate any of our modern risk factors. But the Horus study also found something worth sitting with. The plaque in ancient mummies was often relatively mild compared to the rates and severity found in wealthy industrial populations today. Something was already there. We made it much, much worse. The combination of refined carbohydrates, processed fats, chronic stress, sedentary behavior, and tobacco did not invent the problem. It amplified a vulnerability that was already built in. Gorillas and chimpanzees almost never develop arterial plaque. Humans do. Something in our physiology, the way our immune systems interact with our blood vessels, the lifespans we evolved toward, makes us unusually susceptible. That susceptibility is ancient. What we eat, how we move, whether we smoke, these do not create heart disease from nothing. They accelerate something that was already waiting. The people in the Horus study were farmers and fishers and hunters and priests. They ate differently from you. They moved more than you. They had none of the things we associate with cardiovascular risk, and there it was in their arteries, waiting. Now you know.